we are going to focus on these 10 points. To start with, I think this is not directly related to a common breastfeeding issue, but to some extent it is indirectly related. It is establishment of breastfeeding in the hospital. Now we have come across that initiation of breastfeeding is definitely occurring in the hospital setup, but then somehow establishment of the breastfeeding is lagging in almost every cases which I have counseled so far. And I think it is very important because there is a frequent help by the hospital staff. There are hospital staff available for proper counseling, proper teaching the proper techniques. If breastfeeding is established after initiation has occurred, and if the sessions of breastfeeding goes on every 2 hours, then I don't think the mother will face the difficulties coming in her way, and she will have a good breastfeeding journey. The next problem which is connected to the above or the first problem is poor latching. Because establishment is not occurring in the hospital, the mother stays in the facility for 2 to 3 days, and she is not continuously feeding under the proper supervision of the hospital staff and the doctor. There will be instances that the mother will, when she is home and when she is actually, starting the breastfeeding sessions at home, she will have issues of poor latching. Now, the most common issue I have seen is nipple feeding and holding the head. These two are the basic problem in latching. If you hold the child's or the newborn's head, the child is not going to feed properly. The child will feel very uncomfortable over there. And of course, it will be same as force feeding. And because the techniques she hasn't learned in the facility, she hasn't done proper breastfeeding at the hospital, there will be instances that the mother will go for nipple feeding only, and there will be improper latch. With this, there is another connecting issue, which is inappropriate position, which also I have seen. Usually what is happening is, because it is not, see, everything is connected now, because it is not established in the hospital, the mother is going to feed after or maybe 1 or 2 sessions only happen in the hospital setup, and then she will be having inappropriate position. Inappropriate position means leaning towards the baby. Only head is twisted to the breast. Whole body is not in one line, the actual position which has to be there. Using of wrong feeding pillow. Nowadays, this young generation, by looking at the social media influencers and all the other people, their friends and their family members, they go for this feeding pillow, and they buy prior to their delivery. Now, I think I do suggest feeding pillows, but then I think the mother should wait until the delivery is done, because the size of the child will be different. Maybe there can be instances that the normal pillow available at the home will be able to do the justice, and which the last point over here is bad sitting posture. Mother is generally the sitting posture of the mother is not proper, and which leads to inappropriate position. So there is 3 problem over here: improper latch is not there, inappropriate position, and because of this, mother might think that there is inadequate milk supply. According to me, it is a myth, because most of the mother is capable of making enough milk, but because establishment is not occurring initially, and there is a lack of awareness in the community as well, that few drops of colostrum. So there will be mindset, the family member will have the mindset that only few drops is coming, the mother is not making milk. But initially we all know that those few drops of colostrum is enough for that particular baby, and the baby, if frequent feeding sessions will be there, of course the milk production will start, and of course milk is going to come in, and there will be no inadequate milk supply to that particular newborn. Then this is the next thing, which is creating a huge problem with breastfeeding difficult, creating a huge problem. Many mothers try to, just copy from the social media sites, or they use this breast pumps early. Now there are a variety of breast pumps available in the market. Not every breast pump is good for the mother, and they do feel that if I will be pumping breast milk, then only I will have enough or adequate milk supply, or else only the suckling of the baby will not increase my production. So this is the wrong message which is going into the community, wherein they start using breast pump. And because breast pump, the cost ranges from like minimum to 2000 to manual pumps to 10,000 and so on. Of course, if there will be a budget constraint, the mother is going to buy the cheap one and manual one, which is definitely going to damage the nipple as well as the breast. With all these things, with all above 4-5 problems, there will be, if there is poor latch, if there is inappropriate position, if there is less frequency of feeding, of course there will be engorgement. The mother is going to feel, because the breast is not getting empty. If there is nipple feeding, if the use of pump is started so early, then the nipple can get damaged. There will be breast pain to some extent. There will be sore nipple, clogged ducts, etc. And the mother might go into mastitis, wherein a bacterial infection can go into the from the cracked nipple to the breast, and which can make the breastfeeding session very difficult for that particular mother. The next is, this is what I have derived. There is no scientific name of this. This is what I called it as a post-lactal feeds. Now we have come above of the pre-lactal feeds. Nobody now gives the pre-lactal feeds. But then there are Ayurvedic medicines which are given in some community, and not each and every community. There are few medicines which are given to the infants below 6 months, and there are cultural beliefs with this. That means that they think that that it aids in digestion, it aids in cough and cold, it provides immunity, and this is still there. I don't have that much of issue with this. But if we are talking about exclusively breastfeeding, then if the exclusive breastfeeding definition says that we have to just give breast milk and no other food liquid should be given to the mother, so this feeds does not fit into the exclusive breastfeeding definition. And the way it is given to the child is, this Ayurvedic medicine has been rubbed on a stone, and the wall almond is also rubbed, and it is given, it is mixed with whatever milk is available at the home, be it as a Shakti or Gold or any cows or buffaloes milk, and small amount is added and given to the child even before 6 months. This is the procedure followed in my community, in my culture. So which is what I think it is not necessary, because this is again creating an issue by interfering in the digestive system of that particular child. And gripe water, of course, is there. Still people buy gripe water and they do give gripe water, but I think that it is not needed. If, of course, the child will have colic issues in the first 3 months, and that those can be taken care of with the medications prescribed by the pediatricians, and I don't think that this should be given before 6 months, even before 6 months. Then this is another thing, use of artificial feeding. This is again indirectly affecting the breastfeeding session. Now top feed is started in any kind of delivery, be it a vaginal delivery, be it a C-section. After initiation has occurred, formula milk is being given to the child. I have seen that formula milk was given to each and every child whom I have consulted, and that is fine. It is okay if the mother is not ready, if the mother is in pain. There might be instances that we have to start formula feed during the hospital stay, but then it does continue post hospital discharge. It can continue up to 7 to 15 days, or in some cases it can continue up till 2 years. Now what is happening over here is how this is affecting breastfeeding or creating breastfeeding difficulties is, after few days, if the mother wishes to continue this maybe at night only, so they try and give it with the help of bottle. Now if bottle is introduced so early in the breastfeeding sessions, it will create a nipple confusion, and the child will of course demand for bottle, because there will be fast flow compared to the breast. Over the breast the child have to suckle, and it will create a bit time, and thus because of nipple confusion, this is the next problem mother is facing while breastfeeding. This is yet another problem. Psychological breakdown of a mother. Postnatal depression is another thing, because I have seen that there are so many groups available on social media sites, and if you type anything, if you have a certain problem, and if you type that problem on Google, you are definitely going to get results. And even though you don't have exactly that particular problem, you will think that I have so much of problem, and I think I'm not doing 100%, I'm not feeding my child properly, I have this issue, I don't know what next. These are all the quotes by the mother whom I have counseled. I have heard a mother telling, I'm a bad mother, my child is always hungry, I'm not making enough milk, my child is always cluster feeding, my child is always cranky and crying, I am keeping my child hungry. Because they read all the experience post on the social media, and they compare themselves. So over here I think a message should go to all the mothers, that you don't have to compare yourself with the other mother, because every mother and every child is different, and every experience of that particular duo will be different. So in case if you face any kind of difficulties, you have to consult a professional, rather than you go and search on the social media and get yourself into depression. The next thing which also interferes in the breastfeeding session is, there are women, there are mothers who want to breastfeed for long, but then there is a peer and family pressure to stop breastfeeding as soon as the child reaches around 9-10 months, or maybe 1 year. They are pressurized that now you have to wean off, you have to take off your child from breastfeeding, otherwise you will face so and so difficulties in the later stages. The child is not going to leave you, the child will continuously feed. So we all know that breastfeeding in the second year of life is also very much important. So this again makes the mother confused that now what next to do. And I think focus over here has to be made, and this is indirectly affecting the breastfeeding, because if mother wants to breastfeed for longer duration, there will be so much of pressure, and because of that she might have a psychological breakdown, and the problem continues. So moving on to the next part of the session, it is issues and concerns of a lactation professional. Again, I have divided this into 2 to 3 parts: indirect barriers, direct barriers, and individual context. Plus, I have also tried to focus on what has happened in this COVID situation. To start with, indirect barriers, as I have earlier mentioned, the social norms. It is very challenging to work in the society with a cultural mindset, because I always hear this sentence that we have also raised our child and we know what is good and what is bad. This is what I have heard. Even though if I go and counsel them, they listen to me, they listen to me patiently, but then there are instances that they feel that they do their own cultural thing. They feel that itne saalon se chal raha hai, to why not we should continue this legacy. I think the major problem over here is people want to take a lot of information, but they have a fear in doing it by themselves, doing it against what the society is doing it, and they have the fear of maybe left out, or maybe the taunts, or whatever the pointing out sessions might go into the community. There is another thing happening over here is negative association from an unsuccessful breastfeeding experience. If this is the second child, and if the mother had a bad experience in the first time, even though the mother is now counseled for correctly for the second child for breastfeeding, she will remember her past experiences, and this may take her into the negative zone and might create a barrier in exclusive breastfeeding. Then of course formula feeding is elevated as a desired status symbol and a cultural deal. I have also gone through this phase. I have when I was pregnant and when I was about to deliver, I was to go about to go to delivery, I have also heard that you will also have to give formula. It is necessary nowadays, that for giving formula is necessary, and this is what is going from one family to another. This is what I have observed, that giving formula is necessary. And moving on to the knowledge and attitudes, these are the two other points in indirect barriers. Lack of breastfeeding knowledge by the providers or the family member. They do have breastfeeding knowledge, but it is not up to the mark, which is now supporting the family and supporting the mother and the baby. Plus personal experience. If I have a bad personal experience, I'm definitely going to counsel my friend that I had this problem, and you take care when you have to start breastfeeding. So lack of knowledge is very much in the community. Attitude is yet another thing. Over here, generation gap is the main problem. Then mother and family members believe that formula is good enough and a must. So they feel that nowadays babies are the birth weight of the baby has slightly increased. I have seen the birth weight going up till 4 kg, and at that point of time the attitude of the people will be itna zyada, itna heavy bachcha hai, itna healthy bachcha hai, so the breast milk will not be sufficient. We will have to give formula, and formula is good. So this is what they have developed, the attitude. If we talk about the direct barrier, institutional constraints are there. See, if there will be more and more BFHI or baby friendly hospital available in the society, in the community, I think we will be able to solve all this problem at the hospital level only. Plus, there are few instances where a standard instruction has been given that breastfeed on demand and feed formula afterwards. So I think non-medical indicated use of formula should not be the common practice. Then lack of coordination. Now, I think over here also we need to have a proper collaboration and coordination between the doctors, between the pediatricians, between the other physicians, and if there is a lactation consultant involved, between the nurses. And we should avoid giving incorrect information to the families. Whatever information we have, we should give only that information. And this is another problem, that advice to start complementary food as early as 4 to 5 months is again a barrier to exclusively breastfeeding. The last is poor service delivery. Over here, I want to focus on the same thing. Each and every person the mother goes is talking something different. So the mother gets confused over here, that who is talking correctly and whom I should trust and what advice I should follow. And there are somewhere advices given to the mother that they will not be able to breastfeed because they don't have enough milk, their nipples are flat or inverted, giving inappropriate advices about how long should the mother nurse each side. Yes, this is another problem. This is another advice mother gets, that you have to feed from both the sides, and you have to, if your child is feeding for more than so and so minutes or so and so time, which means the child is not getting proper milk, you have to top feed. So this is what advice is the mother is getting from XYZ source, which shouldn't be the case. Then this is the third thing, self-efficacy of the mother. Over here, self-efficacy, which over here I mean is social norm and social support. If everybody will be talking about the correct and the good aspect of breastfeeding, I think the mother will be informed, and the mother will take the correct decision that whether she wants to go for breastfeeding and how she wants to go for breastfeeding. There are mother perceived barriers as well as available, which is she needs to go back. She has delivered, just delivered. She have to go back to work after 6 months, but then she will start thinking the same thing from starting. So which shouldn't be the case. This will create a negative impact and a negativity towards breastfeeding, and there might be instances that she can go into postpartum depression. Then there are fear of nursing in public. So how am I going to nurse in the public, and what will be the reaction of the people? So these are the self-efficacy of the mother. Mother's perception about their insufficient milk. They don't trust their own bodies to provide milk for their baby. They expect problem prior to even starting breastfeeding. You know, they read a lot of things on social media. They read so many blogs, and then even if even if they haven't delivered yet, they will think that, oh my god, this all our problems are there with breastfeeding, and I think I'm going to face this. So that type of negativity shouldn't be there in the mother's mind as well. So for that, to achieve that, a proper prenatal counseling is the best thing which we can do. And there is another cultural misconception about the mother's figure is, I'm too big, I'm too small, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, or I don't have enough milk. This is going to affect the breasts are so big that it is going to harm the child, XYZ. The next thing which I have faced problem due to COVID is virtual consultation. Over here, these 5 difficulties I have faced in past 1.5 years is difficult to show the correct latch and position. Now, in this small camera, it is very difficult for me to exactly show the mother that how to correctly latch and what should be the position. Identification of problem due to blur video images. Now there is a lot of connectivity issues which I have faced while I was consulting. She tries to show each and everything. She tries to show the latch. She tries to show me the position, but to some extent, uh, it has become very difficult for giving proper consultation. Counseling difficulties due to background noises, crying of the baby, and interference of the family member. Then giving mental positivity and confidence to the mother. It becomes very difficult. The mother is constantly holding the phone, and on the other side, the baby is there on the breast, and it becomes quite difficult for her to understand what am I talking, and to take all the positivity and to take all the confidence from me. Then this is the last is very important. Assessment of the mother's breast, whether the nipple is normal, flat, or inverted. If it is flat or inverted, then we have to counsel accordingly. We do have to check infants oral assessment is important, wherein we have to check the tongue ties and lip ties, whether there is a tongue tie, or if there will be a tongue tie, there will be difficulty in proper latching and positioning. So this is what I have faced so far. And I don't want to end with all the problems and situations. So that is why I am here with a positive note. What can be done to solve all those issues is 3 things I'm going to talk. Is first is prenatal counseling to pregnant couples and family members. I think these all points we should convey in a course of 2 to 3 sessions, one in the second trimester and and second or third, or in the last trimester, maybe in the 8th or the 9th month. Then initiation of breastfeeding in the hospital. I think breast crawl, cord clamping while on the mother's breast, or maybe cord clamping and putting the child on the mother's breast for breast crawl. Frequent breastfeeding session with the help of support, the staff support, the family member support, teaching the family member by the hospital staff, establishment of breastfeeding while in the hospital. The first point which I have talked should be there, and can help us improve this overcoming these problems and situations. The third is post-hospital discharge. If there is a problem, then there should be a referral to a professional lactation consultant. Professional lactation consultant does a lot many things over here. They observe the baby, they examine the breast, they watch the feedings position, then they check on the latching, they check on the problems if at all if there are, they give the written instructions and protocol, explain how to get in touch with the additional with them for additional help or questions. And here I finish my talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yashika, for the wonderful talk. I now request Dr. Bakulesh Chauhan to introduce the second speaker, Ms. Yajurva Barot.
Are you sharing the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Is the screen visible?
Yeah. So coming to second speaker of the day, we have Yajurva Barot. She is MSc PHN and postgraduate diploma in applied nutrition, clinical dietitian and nutritionist, currently pursuing MSc Global Healthcare Management from Coventry University, UK. As far as work experience is concerned, she is currently healthcare assistant at JC Michael Limited, London. She was ICDS officer at Deepak Foundation, Nandesari from August 2020 to February 21. She represented the Maharaja Sahaj University of Baroda at International Social Innovation Challenge, Flower Global Social Innovation Challenge at University of San Diego. She is certified lactational professional from India, Core 1 group. She was working as clinical dietitian at Sterling Cancer Hospital, Vadodara in 2017 and 18. And in 2016 and 17, she was part-time clinical dietitian at Harmony Clinic. The stage is yours, Yajurva.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I would like to share my screen first. Yes, is the screen visible?
Yes, Yajurva.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So first, I would like to thank you, everyone, and thank you, MSU and my department, because it is an immense pleasure for me to be part of this webinar series. And today, I will be talking about lactation management and its role in hospital setting. So by now, you all have known the amazing nutritional benefits of mother's milk and how it helps the baby and the mother in various ways, how breastfeeding works and how an OBGY can transform the breastfeeding scene, and how breast milk substitutes affect our environment. After all this, we will talk some more about lactation and its management in hospital settings. So first, I would like to take you through the history, and then we will talk more about the question like, are these lactation consultants do actually make the difference in hospital settings? And then we will look into hospital lactation services and how it is managed. What are the roles and responsibilities of a lactation counselor? And we'll sign off with key points to keep in mind while doing a lactation consultation. And I will also brief you about the IBCLC certification program. So let's get started with the lactation consultation. A lactation consultant is a specialist who is trained to focus on the needs and concerns of a breastfeed mother and baby pair to prevent, recognize, and solve breastfeeding difficulties. They are an integral member of the breastfeeding mother's healthcare team, a position which is accompanied by tremendous responsibility. I believe that they do not replace the healthcare workers which are already there in the healthcare department. In fact, their work is an extender of maternal child services. So a lactation consultant works with public in many settings like hospital setting, clinical setting, private medical practices, community health departments, home health agencies, and also private practices are also available. Today, we will discuss on hospital setting role, and just like nutrition and dietetics is a rapidly growing field, lactation consulting is also a rapidly growing healthcare specialty right now. So before it was recognized as lactation consultant as a paid specialist, almost in 1985, individuals used to serve breastfeeding women as volunteers or as unrecognized practitioners. But over time, lack of standardization and skills and minimal competencies held by these volunteers prompted the formal development of specialty practice. So this occurred in part through a certification examination administered by IBLCE. This is International Board of Lactation Consultant Examiners, and I will brief you about this in the later part of this presentation. So let's move on to the history. So normally in a cultural setting, when we see, let's take the example of our Indian culture. Nearly all mothers who are about to start their breastfeeding journey get help with breastfeeding through their shared knowledge of either their family members or neighbors or even friends. But as the childbirth came to be managed by health professionals in hospital setting, and gradually formula feeding became a cultural norm, the knowledge of lactation, which a mother formerly shared with her daughter, a sister shared with her younger sister, was set aside or even lost. Thus, during in 1960s in the USA and shortly in other countries like Australia, volunteers, mother-to-mother breastfeed support groups became major source of assistance earlier there, and information were shared between them about how to breastfeed a child. As the number of breastfed mothers increased in these years, and healthcare providers at first ignored these groups, but later they came to appreciate them because they were the missing piece of prenatal and postnatal care. La Leche League also responded to this group of volunteers by providing them research information to the group leaders, and also by publishing quarterly newsletters on breastfeeding abstracts, which focus exclusively on scientific literature. And out of this context, some of the experienced breastfeed support group members who had learned all the, who had learned how to breastfeed the baby all these years, they get into the paid work setting. And by this time, in 1982, La Leche League formed its lactation consultant department. And from this beginning, grew this concept of the need for a new healthcare worker, a lactation consultant. And that's how the history goes. So let's see that after all this, do these lactation consultants make a difference? So today, many people still doubt about the effectiveness of a lactation consultant or interventions which are given by a lactation consultant or a professional lactation counselor. Randomized controlled trials of breastfeeding interventions were done worldwide, most of which were conducted in developed countries, that were published in a meta-analysis commissioned by the USA Preventive Service Task Force. And in this meta-analysis, breastfeeding promotion interventions significantly increased both short-term and long-term exclusive breastfeeding. In addition to this meta-analysis, the golden standard of medical research, which we all know as Cochrane Review, that meta-analysis also said that extra support given to breastfeed women by lay and professional support together extended the duration of breastfeeding, especially of exclusive breastfeeding. These are the other studies which shows that how a lactation consultant or a counselor helps the mother and increases the breastfeeding rates and promotes the initiation of breastfeeding and also positively promote breastfeeding practices. At the same time, they are cost effective and they also help in low income settings. You can have a look at the studies, and they can also, these studies can also be duplicated in other parts of the world and on a larger scale. So we also did a study last year under the guidance of Professor Vanisha Nambiar and Ashish Gokhale sir. I conducted a study on barriers in initiation of breastfeeding. The study was in 3 parts. The part 1 and part 3 was for doctors and nurses, but the part 2 was specifically formed for the mothers. For this presentation context, I will explain about the part 1 and part 3. So in the part 1, we did a situational analysis where we assessed their knowledge and the baseline survey it was. So during that baseline survey, we conducted and we came to a conclusion that their knowledge regarding breastfeeding and lactation was not up to the mark as we thought, because they were working in a lactation management area. And so we provided them training on lactation, which was stretched for 5 to 6 days. And in that training, I included IYCF practices and lactation management. And after that training, the post-training improvement was really good. The resident doctors which took part in our training, we asked them that what 2 points you learned from the training. So the main point they learned was the delayed cord clamping and early initiation of breastfeeding, the Ma Yojana, and the other main important point was the doctors, they will take into consideration while counseling a mother. The main point was counseling ANC mother on nutrition, which was huge because it was a lacking point, because mothers were not properly counseled on what food they should eat, or there are many barriers regarding nutrition as compared to other barriers. So we concluded the study as if we recruit a lactation consultant or a lactation support group, which can even be their own staff members, it will overcome the barriers of initiation of breastfeeding, which is within the first hour. They can do this by techniques like BCC, behavior change communication, visual aid, personal counseling, and other appropriate methods. It will make a positive deviant for the mothers because they come from a variety of cultural background and their amic views are also different. So moving forward to the lactation service management in the hospital. So the key element in quality hospital lactation care is appropriate policy development and staff training. IBCLCs are ideally suited to work with hospital team, and hospitals are particularly concerned with patient safety and risk management issues, both of which are increased when inadequate lactation care is provided, as we can all understand, because some of us are already working in hospital setting, especially in high acuity lactation situations. And it is crucial to identify mothers and children who are at higher risk for poor breastfeeding outcomes, enables a hospital to allocate appropriate resources and in a more timely manner. So how we can effectively manage this lactation service? It is to be considered as a shared responsibility for all the healthcare providers. And it should not be like if a hospital already has a lactation consultant, which is a good thing, but if a consultant is there, the nursing staff should not be like they should. The nursing staff should also support them. Like the lactation management has 3 stages. The stage 1, low acuity patients, which are like basic breastfeeding and the routine management of breastfeeding, mother's decision to breastfeed or not, to pump or not, mother's latch with the baby, minimal assistance is required. This all are the low acuity patients. This should be taken care by the nursing staff. While when it comes to the high acuity or the medium acuity patients, like high risk of preterm delivery, CS delivered patient, delayed breastfeeding initiated mother, acute maternal illnesses like preeclampsia, postpartum depression, postpartum hemorrhage mother. The maternal age also is a major factor, like a mother is under 18 or greater than a 35-year age, endocrine disorders of the mother, inadequate milk transfer to the baby, NICU baby, and even the induced lactation, infant oral and motor dysfunction. This all patients should be taken care by the lactation counselor, so that she can provide more support to that patient, and her time is provided more to this this second and third level acuity breastfeeding couplets, rather than the basic couplets, which can be managed by the nursing staff. So educated nurses on lactation management can change institutional and community breastfeeding culture. So what are the roles and responsibilities of a lactation consultant? As Yashika ma'am already discussed about this, that there are quite many roles of a lactation consultant. The responsibility is to see that the mother is provided up-to-date and accurate information and appropriate assistance. The role may closely parallel to that of a clinical nurse specialist, in that it requires in-depth knowledge and expertise in lactation management. The lactation consultant should give direct care, teach, consult, and conduct or assist in conducting research. And they are the gap, they can be a bridge between a pediatrician and a gynecologist. So as I said earlier, they are an extender of the maternal health services, and they are not a replacer of that. So they also provide prenatal breast examination. They are a core member of the birthing team and help in early initiation of breastfeeding, which has innumerable advantages. And they help mother and baby in various issues concerning to breastfeeding. So key points during a lactation consultant. There are 5 main points which should be taken into consideration while consulting a mother. The first is establishing a connection with the client. It is important, like really important, to establish a connection with the client. It is also called as rapport building. You should provide trust. You should smile, give warmth. Eye contact is very necessary. You should praise the client, listen, match and mirror the activities they do, and attend. Also, in the first step, it is very important that you ask the mother what are her concerns, what are the goals for her in breastfeeding, and what is the goal for her in this consultation if you are providing. The second is gather the history, but the history should be gathered in a systematic manner. First, we should gather the history of the mother, then the breast, then infant, then family, and the breastfeeding session. So this is how the systematic history gathering goes. Then first we will talk about the mother's history. In the mother's history, we should take the general health of the mother, like smoking, fatigue, how the mother sleep cycle goes, if she's taking any medication, herbals, lacteals, and nutritional history like weight gain during pregnancy, weight loss after delivery, fluid intake, previous baby if she had, then breastfeeding problems with her previous baby, slow weight gain of the previous baby. If the mother is pumping, what kind of pump she's using, is the pump properly fitting, the flange of the pump, and if we should then go on to the maternal history, like mother's behavior with the baby, if she's confident, insecure, or insensitive with the baby. Moving to the breast, there are 4 basic rules while examining the breast. The first is size, second is shape, third is symmetry of the breast, and fourth is surgical implants. So these 4 things should be keep in mind while assessing the breast of the mother. Also the accessory breast tissues, plugged ducts, and this small problems which can be solved without any incision should be taken care of while assessing the breast of the mothers. Going forward to the infant assessment, it includes hydration of the infant. When we pull the skin of the infant, if it comes slowly down, the hydration, there's a problem with the hydration of the infant, and we should then assess the infant's head, mouth, palate, if the infant is having a tongue tie, the jaundice, because in the first couple of days we can assess if the infant is suffering from jaundice or not. We should then include the wet diapers of the infant, the stool, and breastfeeding diaper stools. Then comes the breastfeeding assessment. We should assess the feeding and duration of the feeding, readiness of the infant, like if the infant is alert or if the infant is lethargic and sleeps while breastfeeding. These are main points while considering a lactation consultation. The latch of the infant, suck and swallow reflex of the infant are also very important. Then comes the breastfeed assessment. It has 3 steps. We should take the measurement. Like first, before feeding, we should test the weight. After emptying the first breast, we should test the weight. After emptying the second breast, we should test the weight of the baby, and then we should calculate the total intake of the breast milk. Then the last thing is family support. How the mother is provided support by the family members. If the mother is having any stressors in the family, like work stress, or if the mother is going from a relationship stress or other children stress, or if the mother is having any maternal history like thyroid or some other history, then the plan of care comes. The last stage is, and in that we should consider as this cardinal rules is feed the baby adequately, which is the first thing. It is our responsibility. Feed the baby adequately. Regulate the mother's milk supply. We should always take care of the mother's milk supply and transition the baby to a successful breastfeeding. That's how this whole process goes. But the session is still not end. The session should be end by summarizing all the points to the mother. We should praise the mother, and then we should disconnect with her. And after disconnecting with her, we should document all the data which we collected, and we should share with our findings with the team. So that's how it goes. Moving forward with the certification of the IBLCE. So the need to develop this program was derived due to the 3 reasons. It is listed in the IBCLC website. And the first was because there was an awareness that was required that many healthcare providers discredited the value of the volunteer counselors because of the unpaid job, as I discussed this earlier in our presentation. The second was a need to establish minimum standards for individuals who were already providing lactation consultation services for a free of charge. And the third was the need for a knowledgeable healthcare team member who was responsible for lactation and breastfeeding care. A certification program was viewed as a way to recognize the importance. So how you can prepare for an IBCLC examination? There are 3 stages of this preparation. First, we need to prepare for the IBCLC certification, and you need to be eligible in the criteria. There are different subjects you should have passed in your bachelor's or master's, and you should adhere to the code of professional conduct for IBCLCs. The step 2 is certification fees and key dates. Initial certification fees and upcoming dates, you should keep yourself updated regarding the dates. And if one date is missed, you have to go to the process all over again. The step 3 is obviously to apply for the IBCLC examination. And before ending this presentation, I was the other day going like just scrolling our department's YouTube page, and that where I saw this quote: wherever you go and wherever whatever ends you pursue, you must always fulfill the trust reposed in you by your nation, your parents, and your alma mater. So best wishes for your bright future and stay connected. So on behalf of my on my whole batch, I would like to extend thanks to the department, to all the teachers who have done amazing job, and I want to thank you on behalf of my whole batch. And for me personally, I would like to thank Vanisha ma'am. You play a huge role in what I am today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yajurva, for the wonderful session and informing us about the IBCLC. I would now request Dr. Vakulesh Chauhan to summarize the session before we move to the, after that we will move to the question and answers.
So we have heard two lactational consultants, and I would say that you both have done wonderful job. And I would wish that if every maternity home is having roped in either daily on daily basis or say on a consultant management basis, if there is lactational management consultant with every maternity home, then I think the theme which is telling that protecting breastfeeding a shared responsibility, in that context, the sharing of responsibility will be measured, taken over by lactational consultant, because I believe when I have heard this terminology 2 years back of there is something called lactational consultant, I thought that पहले pediatrician थे, उसके बाद neonatologist आए, अभी उसमें भी सब branch, उसमें भी super specialty lactational management consultant. And I used to like think that when I am telling when baby is delivered and I go to break the news that congratulations, your baby boy, baby girl, and then after baby is handed over, it usually takes me 8 to 10 minutes to explain that what is proper breastfeeding. And with due respect to my wife who is gynecologist, they are not at all teaching before delivery that what is happening with the breast, what is the breast size, how to feed. And because I understand that pediatrician and gynecologist both are having their own set of problems. And that is why the need of the hour is that we should be having lactational management consultant. That is the important point. And you both have done very wonderful job. And second important thing which I would say that Yashika has told, there is something called knowledge and attitude, but we are not putting in practice. We use, Shruti must be like agree with me that we do a lot of study which is called KAP, knowledge, attitude and practice. We have knowledge, we are having attitude, but not putting into practice. So we should be putting in practice, and for that, to explain each and every point, we require lactational consultant. So that's one thing. I appreciate what Yashika has told about COVID management, breastfeeding about, and Yajurva has told a very good, fascinating history. And what is the role of lactational consultant? She has very elaborated talk on that thing. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sir.
And thank you, Shruti and MS, this department for calling me. Thank you once again. Over to you, Shruti.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for chairing the sessions. There are a few questions that I would like to take up. First, I would like to ask Yashika. Yashika, can you explain how do clients approach you, and if what is the way if clients can approach you?
Okay, so there is lack of this referral thing from the doctors and the doctors. The clients which I have counseled so far are my friends and colleagues. Plus, with this 1 year of professional experience, I am everywhere on the social media. If you type lactation counselor, you will find me on Google, and through that also many people have come to me. But they come directly while searching on the internet that is there any lactation professional around us or in this Vadodara city, and they do find me, and then they consult me through my website. So this is how they can, but I think there should be more referral from the doctors. But then I think this is lack of my thing, because of COVID, I could not approach more to the gynecologist and doctors, because I also have a young child, and the phobia was very much in this last year. And this is why I was scared to approach any gynecologist. To some extent, I have tried to contact my personal gynecologist as well as pediatrician, but then the referral is a bit low from their side.
So basically, I can sum up that the majority of your clients are either through the social media platforms or your contacts. It's a little lesser from
friends of friends. They just refer, my friends refer to their family members. So friends of friends. Word of mouth is the major.
I have following you on the Facebook, and the messages are beautiful, I can say that, and that are more apt, which are needed in today's time. Yajurva, I would like to ask you the question, like, can you inform us the process of becoming a certified lactation consultant?
Yeah, sure. So
and part also, if you can, what is the course difference from a BPNI and a CLC course?
Okay.
How different are they?
Okay, so there are many online courses available. The one which I did was from Begin and India, and the course was Certified Lactation Professional. The course fees are around 25,000 rupees, and it has two core modules, core module 1 and module 2. The course is 45-hour long. The course which Yashika ma'am has done is advanced course, which is a higher level from my course. My course was 45 hours and her course was 90 hours practice. The other courses are from BPNI. That course is in that course has a context of Indian variation, and the Begin at India has a worldwide context. Like the course has more of US data in it rather than Indian data, which we require if we want to do a lactation consultation in India. So, and also the BPNI course is has a lesser price compared to Begin and India. The course by BPNI is around 18 to 20,000 rupees, and the Begin and India is 25,000 and up. It rises, so that's how it goes.
So basically, BPNI is more with an Indian context.
Yes, and it also you can have complete the course in a 7-day period. Yeah. It covers the whole 45-hour thing in the 7-day period, and then I guess there's an examination after the course, same like Begin and India, but the examination there is online, and in Begin and I mean BPNI examination, maybe I don't know after the COVID, but before it you can go in person also.
Yes.
Can I add one more point over here?
Yes.
Okay, so if you want that international certification, which is IBCLC, you need to have 90 hours course, which is the course should be valid worldwide. So if you are willing to opt for this international certification, you need to have that 90 hours. Plus, there are 3 pathways for that. As a nutrition background, you fall in pathway 1, wherein a 90 hour plus 5 to 6 hours of communication course is must, and 1,000 hours of experience, practical experience. Even if it is a free counseling session, it will count. But if any one person or any nutritionist or any participants want to get that international certification, then I think Begin at India provides that 90 hours course, and which will be helpful for that particular participant.
Can I just ask one question? Is the IBCLC completely an online course?
It is an examination where you just have to apply and they conduct an examination. The examination is scheduled 2 times in a year, April and September. So I am going to give this exam in this September, and after they declare the result, I think around December, and for April session they declare the result in June or July. And yes, anything else?
Yeah, so I think there are 3 levels in IBCLC.
3 pathways are there. So, so whatever pathway is suitable for that particular person can join that particular pathway. There are people doing this courses, lactation courses, if they have studied engineering or so. But if they want to go with pathway 1, then they have to do 14 courses, health courses, which are listed on the IBCLC website. After they finish that course, they have to also undergo the examination, the experience they need to submit the experience certification to the examination board, and then they will be allowed. Many a times they are audited also. In most of the cases, if they are from non-medical background, they are always audited.
There's a question I think Yashika can answer. If a mother comes to you, how do you counsel her when she has a doubt or regarding her body image, and what would the society tell her for losing weight? How do you counsel those mothers?
Okay, so first of all, I listen to whatever problem or issue she is having. I listen to each and every point, and accordingly I try to convince her. I try to positively tell her that your body is going to reduce in a couple of months. You just have to focus right now on breastfeeding, and then gradually, if you are breastfeeding, it is going to help you in reducing weight. And then once you are once the child is on complementary food, and once the child is around 1 year, you can start thinking of losing weight. So not before the child is crossed 1. So I always counsel them, you just have to wait for 1 more year, and then after that you can come to me. I will definitely guide you on how to lose weight.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much. And regarding the BPNI lactation courses, I can just, Yajurva has highlighted that it's a 7-day course, but it is both theory as well as the practical, and even there the communication skill courses are there. So we are being trained how to counsel the patient, how to talk to them, and all the theory parts like the positioning and attachment, we do it, we evaluate it through role plays as well as the practical sessions which are there. So I think that would be a little major difference between IBCLC as well as BPNI. Yeah, what do you think, Yashika and Yajurva? Yeah, because there we are doing it in person, so maybe we are being trained with the practical sessions, because I know it is almost equal percentage is given to theory as well as the practical sessions in the BPNI courses.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a question to Bakulesh sir. Do you think that there is a need to have more certified lactation consultants?
I have already told no that they can share. It is not shared responsibility. They can have whole the responsibility.
Yes.
Because pediatrician and gynecologists are having their own set of problem, and they cannot spare time, which I think as elaborated by Yashika, that it needs a good amount of time to solve the query. It's a whole counseling session which require, I think, if I am not wrong, 1 hour for one patient. And,
yes.
it may require multiple sessions, at least 4 or 5 sessions. I can vouch like this because I am because I am adolescent consultant, and people think that there is not required. It is not required, but it is required. That how मेरा बेटा पढ़ता नहीं है, मेरा बेटा ये नहीं करता है, मेरा बेटा वो नहीं करता नहीं. It takes lot of my time. When I am doing adolescent consultant, it drains me, and I cannot take more than 2 consultation in a day. So it is a very draining thing. तो याशिका दिन में 2 के 3 मदर के से ज्यादा बात नहीं कर सकती. This is what I can say that.
Also, sir, I have to available for them 24/7. They can message me at 11 o'clock also that this is what I am facing, and I have to reply, and I do reply.
Yes. But that is Yashika. It is a 2-3 minute job that can be done by a pediatrician. That can be done by gynecologist. But what madam is asking me, that is there a need of lactation consultant per se? That is what I am answering, that it is a full-time job, and you need to spend 1 hour, 2 hours per day if you really want to do it.
Yes.
If pediatrician can do it, I think they can do it. But if it is certified and you are having that tag on your hospital, then it is like cherry on the cake.
Yes, sir. Sir, I can just add to that. You are absolutely correct. We can handle only 1 to 2 patients in a day, because when we say 1 hour, it is more of a skilled counseling that is there. We listen to them and then we just give our points. So Basically,
Yes.
it takes up 1.5 hour or our time.
You need to give time. You need to give time if you want to prove your explain your point.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to justify what is
And
the role of a
you
lactation.
need to listen to them. You need to listen to them.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah, thank you for the session. I would now like to invite Professor Meenakshi Mehan ma'am, Head of Department of Foods and Nutrition, President of Foods and Nutrition Alumni Association, to give her concluding remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Bakulesh, for chairing the session. Thank you very much, Shruti. And thank you to the team for putting up a very good series, very informative series. And we are concluding today. But as we said earlier also, this is just the beginning. We will continue to work towards promotion of breastfeeding with support of our alliance members, pediatricians, lactation counselors, and everyone. Thank you so much. And I'm feeling actually very proud today because our own youngsters, our own, I should be saying students now, there are no more students, young professionals doing excellent job. And it's a very, you feel very satisfied that yes, children, they are blossoming, and it's very nice to see this. It's a very good feeling as a teacher to see our students blossoming and doing very, very well. And we wish them that they do much, 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 much more than what we have been able to achieve in our lives. So all the best to both of you, and very proud of you. And thanks a lot to this team, our alliance partners, our alumni association members, and of course, our think tank, Dr. Vanisha Nambiar, and the major force behind this whole thing. Thanks a lot for putting up this. And thank you again. Thank you to other support that she has got. Excellent job done by Dr. Vijata. Her session was very good. Her anchoring and all these liaisoning has been excellent. And similarly, Shruti was also very good. And I feel very proud that our youngsters, young professionals are blossoming. And it's a beautiful feeling. Thanks a lot. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. And I now request Professor Vanisha Nambiar to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shruti. I've logged in from 2 devices just in case I get logged off. So it's a pleasure to see my students on the dais, whether it's a virtual or physical platform, doesn't matter. Yajurva is joining us from United Kingdom, and Yashika is right next door. But it's so good to see all of them on the same frame, sharing the same passion about MIYCN. And I'm on my cloud 9 today. Yes, WBW and MIYCN has been my favorite subjects throughout so many years. And it's indeed overwhelming to see such good responses and good feedback of the work that has been done to share, to strengthen, to promote, and to protect breastfeeding. And this magnanimous task would not have been possible without the support of a team and the blessings of so many seniors. So just to put on record, I'm going to say some names one by one. I would extend my heartfelt thanks to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Parimal Vyasa, for always encouraging and giving us permissions to give us the freedom to organize and encouraging collaborations and encouraging partnerships. So thank you, Professor Parimal Vyasa, for this. My sincere thanks to our Dean, Professor Anjali Karolia, ma'am, a renowned scientist in the field of clothing and textile, for readily permitting us and for always blessing us for these events. My heartfelt thanks to our head, Professor Meenakshi Mehan, ma'am, herself a very eminent public health nutritionist, for her critical comments, for her support and encouragement, and giving us liberty to organize events, and always encouraging us and giving us so much of knowledge in every step of life. So thank you, Meenakshi ma'am, for this. And my young staff, I believe in capacity building. I believe in lifting good talents, and the Department of Foods and Nutrition has no dearth of talents. So the platform this year was actually handled by 3 very eminent young staff. So my heartful thanks to Dr. Vijeta Sengar, to Dr. Shruti Kantawala. Mansi, if you could please switch on your video. And Mansi Divanji, who's our young dynamic staff and also a newly registered PhD student. So these 3 amazing, staff has really worked wonders, and I am indebted to them. They are the webinar coordinators. I would also put on record all the speakers and all the chairpersons who have handled all the sessions so well. To start with Dr. R.K. Bakshi, Dr. Meenakshi Mehan, of course, it's my name, then Dr. Chandresh Pandya, and Dr. Ashutosh Rathod. And today we have Dr. Bakulesh Chauhan, who have moderated, who have given their very critical insights, and who have chaired the session so well. My special thanks to all the speakers, without whom the sessions wouldn't have been completed at all. So the first session was by Ms. Deha Kantharias, Deputy Director of ICDS, then Dr. Rinki Shah, Ms. Sujata Gami, all the way from United States, Dr. Sheila Iyer, Head of Pediatrics Department, Dr. Binal Shah, who was replaced by Dr. Archana, then Dr. Vijeta Sengar, Dr. Priya Jagdishan from Santa Clara, USA, Dr. Sonia Mishra, again from San Jose, USA, Dr. Samir Shah, Dr. Shruti Kantawala, and today 2 amazing young speakers, Ms. Yajurva Barot and Ms. Yashika Bhausar. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and insights with our participants. So my special thanks to all the participants who are with us on Zoom as well as on Facebook Live. So there are so many views on Facebook and more. They're not satisfied. So we are going to give you more. Just wait for some time. We will be giving you things which are the need of the hour. We are going to launch some more training programs. You please fill up your feedback form and tell us what is it that you want. We'll try our level best to link. And linkage means our WBW Alliance. The World Breastfeeding Week Alliance was formed in 2017. And I'm happy with 4 years down the line, we have progressed immensely in terms of collaborations, in terms of organization of various activities, and in terms of planning a lot of other activities besides just breastfeeding. So we've now, as Bakulesh sir is an expert on adolescents, we also have moved with the same alliance group, even in adolescent counseling. So it is, as our Prime Minister says, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. So that's the motto that even I believe in. I believe in capacity building. I believe in Sabko Lift Kara De. And I hope you have enjoyed, learned, and we will work together and we'll reach out as many as possible. My urgent request to all of you to follow our YouTube channel and also follow our Facebook and Instagram. And we will be putting up all the updates on these channels. We keep doing it from time to time. So thank you to everyone on the dais, off the dais, to all my department staff who have willingly, unwillingly, knowingly, unknowingly, somehow or the other have helped all of us. So thank you so much to all my department staff, non-teaching staff, to print, media, to government, and everyone who has made this program a success. So with this, I would request Shruti, I think we should all stand up for our national anthem. Thank you so much. And फिर मिलेंगे.
Just one more thing, Vanisha, can we request all those participants who have joined in, and if they are not alumni members, to become alumni members, so that we remain connected and we continue to do, sharing and, knowing what our alumni is doing, and they can also be part of our sessions in future if they have done something good. So it is nice if they can all also become members.
Yes, we will be sharing the link on the Facebook, Insta, and YouTube shortly. So please, it is Sabka Saath. So see, Yajurva and Yashika are our alumni members. And we reached out to them because they were in touch with us. Of course, Yajurva is just last year passed out, and I knew where she is. But there are so many people, so many highly eminent alumni placed all over the globe. And I wish that even the young alumni, young pass-outs, do well in life and be in touch with it, with us, because you have to give back in the society in order to be successful. So please join our alumni group too. And over to Shruti now.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. We will kindly raise for the national anthem. I will just start in a second.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंग विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्ज्वल जलधि तरंग तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
With this, we come to the end of our international webinar series. I thank you once and all to listen to us, to participate with us in this webinar series. And thank you once and all. With this, we end the series.